everybody. I'm back, and I'm back with a vengeance. I'm joking. Welcome back, everybody. Hello. It's been a while since I did a live stream on YouTube. I've been taking a little bit of a break. I've also been extremely busy with work. I've been traveling a lot. I came back from Ireland only yesterday. And I'm going back there again very, very soon. So I've had very little time to keep you guys updated with my activities, but that doesn't mean I haven't been working non-stop behind the scenes. And I thought I would jump on here and inform you of today being a very special anniversary in the world of Scientology in the UK. And it's certainly an anniversary that Scientology will not be celebrating. But before we get to that, let's say hello to everybody in the chat. Bog Buddies here. Hello from Minnesota. Hello and welcome to the 5 people who received my gifted memberships today. Thank you so much for supporting the channel with your comments and engagement and all of that. We've got Leanie, SP Crusader. Hi, Alex Mods and Chatters. Hello. Andy Two Arms is in the chat. Hi, Alex, and everyone else in the chat. Andy, I'm going to give you a call after this live stream because I missed your call yesterday. So sorry, man. I'll be in touch as soon as this is over. Kirby's mum. Hi, Alex. Hi, chat. Hello. Lupita T, hi from Texas. Hello. Paintbox Tunes says hi. Kirby's mum's here is in the chat. I've already said hello to you. Jane Wilson, good to see you. You are sounding energized. Yes, absolutely. It's important to take breaks, and a break is what I needed. And I am now well rested. I have a clear head. I know where I'm at, and I know what I'm up to. And yeah. I hope I sound more energized because I feel more energized. So today is the 25th anniversary of the Charity Commission rejecting the Church of Scientology tax exemption in the United Kingdom because it failed to provide a public benefit. Now, this is a stance that the Charity Commission it still upholds. I reached out to them last year with a Freedom of Information Act request. And in their response, the Charity Commission reaffirmed their stance, their stance, which is that the Church of Scientology was not established for the public benefit. And I thought we would run through an article I published today that documents how this has affected Scientology over the last 25 years. So let's have a little read through. I haven't put the link to this in the description just yet. I will do so after the live is over. I did originally publish this on Scientology Business, my blog. However, that website is currently down at the moment. So I've also published it on my Buy Me a Coffee page. And it's free to access for anyone who wants to read along. But this is a thumbnail, obviously. Let's just read through. 25 years ago today, on the 17th of November, 1999, the Church of Scientology were rejected tax exemption by the UK's Charity Commission. In the landmark ruling, commissioners decided the practice of Scientology does not benefit the public and that the organisation itself was not established to promote the moral or spiritual welfare or improvement of the community. The decision was a major blow to Scientology's bid for religious recognition, with the Charity Commission reaffirming their views on the group statement to Scientology Business last year. This is a quote from their statement. The Commission's decision in 1999 to refuse to register the Church of Scientology cannot now be appealed. The Church of Scientology is not established for the public benefit. To mark the occasion, we thought we'd revisit the 49-page ruling and comment on how it has impacted Scientology's UK operations over the last 25 years. For context, Scientology were granted tax-exempt status in the United States by the Internal Revenue Service in 1993, which fully recognized the Church of Scientology and many of its related entities as 501c3 charitable organizations. 3 years later, in September 1996, that's when I was just 1 year old, Scientology filed an application for charity status in the UK. However, in the United Kingdom, groups must pass a public benefit test, which assesses whether they're carrying out charitable activities for the public good. Now, this is something that I think is really important, and it's a fantastic system that we have here in the United Kingdom. If you set up a religious group or a charitable organization, you aren't immediately granted charity status. You have to apply for it. And it's not just a case of a form you fill out that says, hey, this is what we're doing. The government actually look at your finances, your corporate structure, and they assess whether what you're doing benefits not just the community, but the wider community, the entire public of the country. Now, there is an exemption under the religious organizations category. If you are promoting religion or advancing religion, you are then granted charity status because that in itself is seen as a public benefit. However, this ruling here looked at the practice of Scientology auditing and training, and the Charity Commission has decided that regardless of whether Scientology is considered a religion or not, the practice of Scientology is inherently private and does not benefit the public. And therefore, they made a very clear statement that irrespective of their religious status, the actual organization was not established for the public benefit, and the practice of this so-called religious belief doesn't benefit the community at large. And that is something that is really pivotal that we'll talk more about in a little bit. But let's carry on here. Applications are scrutinized by the Charity Commission, and every aspect of the organization is meticulously analyzed, from its corporate structure and governing document to how its trustees intend to meet its charitable aims. On granting of charity status, organizations are required to submit evidence annually of their charitable activities and how they have benefited the public, with the Charity Commission acting as a government regulator. And that's one thing also to note, that a lot of countries don't have this in place. Once you get charity status, you have to continue to prove every single year that you are engaging in charitable activities. The Charity Commission is not just a government organization that manages the tax and the applications. It actually regulates charitable organizations. And every year you have to prove that you have been fulfilling your aims as a charity, spending your money accordingly, and you are continuing to provide a public benefit. And if you don't prove that, they will take away your charity status. The Charity Commission also do investigations, and they recently investigated Narconon, Scientology's UK drug rehab center, which came under fire, and they were provided some guidance because they were falling short of what the Charity Commission expected. So the regulator will step in and enforce certain rules and regulations if the charity is falling short of what they are supposed to do. So this regulation system is fantastic, and it's actually something that was borrowed by Australia. Senator Nick Xenophon, way back when, he was concerned about Scientology in Australia, and he actually set up or started the process of setting up the Australian Charities and Non-Profits Commission. And the whole basis of that was the Charity Commission in the UK and their public benefit test. So this is a really good system. And I really do hope that other countries follow suit in applying this public benefit test, because this is how Scientology get away with so much in America, is because they were granted tax exempt status, and that allows them to be free from scrutiny. Whereas in the UK, charities are actually scrutinized more than non-charitable organizations because they are tax exempt. So the taxpayer is bearing the burden of a lot of their costs. So it's only right that they are scrutinized. So I really hope that other countries take note of this and follow suit. Scientology's application took 3 years to assess, with the commissioners finally publishing its decision on the 17th of November 1996. This here is a quote from the page, from the document itself. Now, the actual decision is 49 pages long. It is still available on the Charity Commission website. This was a landmark legal case that has wide-reaching consequences and impacts on lots of charitable organizations, especially religious organizations in the UK. This is a landmark ruling, and as such, it is still available to publicly download on the Charity Commission website for free, if you are so inclined. But I've just included the conclusion here and a couple of quotes to keep it simple. But if you do want to read the full thing, go to the Charity Commission's website and you can download it. Conclusion. The commissioners, having considered the full legal and factual case and supporting documents, including expert evidence, which had been put to them by the Church of Scientology, and having considered and reviewed the relevant law, taking into account the principles embodied in the European Convention on Human Rights, ECHR, the commissioners concluded that the Church of Scientology is not established as a charity and accordingly is not registrable as such. In so determining, the commissioners concluded as follows. The Church of Scientology is not charitable as an organization established for the advancement of religion because, having regard to the relevant law and evidence, A, Scientology is not a religion for the purpose of English charity law. That religion of the purpose of charity law constitutes belief in a supreme being and worship of that being. Now, one thing to note is this ruling was in 1996. Since then, there was another ruling by the Supreme Court in 2013, which redefined religion. So, in terms of this decision, this actual point has now changed. Scientology would be able to justify that it is a religion under British law because of the 2013 Supreme Court case, so we'll talk more about it in a little bit. However, they were really careful with their decision here because I think they knew that that's what Scientology were going for. And with their ruling, they made it clear that even if that was to change, i.e. Scientology's status as a religion in the UK, even if that was to change, this decision doesn't change and they are not established as a charity. So very, very smart here. That it is accepted that Scientology believes in a supreme being. However, the core practices of Scientology, being auditing and training, do not constitute worship, as they do not display the essential characteristic of reverence or veneration for a supreme being. B, that even were Scientology otherwise established for the advancement of religion, public benefit should not be presumed, given the relative newness of Scientology and public and judicial concern expressed. So what the Charity Commission here are saying is that even if that first point was to change and Scientology was for some reason to be considered a religion, which is what then happened, even if that was the case, Scientology was not established for the advancement of religion. And because of all of the controversy surrounding it and the concerns that had been laid out by judges and by former members and by the press, they shouldn't be considered for charity status. C, public benefit arising from the practice of Scientology and or the purposes of the Church of Scientology had not been established. The Church of Scientology is not charitable as an organization established to promote the moral or spiritual welfare or improvement of the community because having regard to the relevant law and evidence. A, practice of the Scientology and the purpose of the Church of Scientology are not analogous to the legal authorities establishing the moral or spiritual welfare or improvement of the community as a charitable purpose, and in taking a broader view of the authorities, would not be likely to achieve such purpose. And B, that even were the Church of Scientology otherwise established for the promotion of the moral or spiritual welfare or improvement of the community, public benefit arising out of the practice of Scientology and all the purposes of the Church of Scientology had not been established. So what they are saying here is even if things were to change and Scientology was to be considered a religion, the organization isn't set up in a way that meets the requirements under charity law because the organization is not geared towards and set up towards the goal of enhancing the spiritual welfare of the community, which is what they need to provide to prove a public benefit under UK charity law. So it's really, really important here that the Charity Commission didn't just say, no, your application is rejected. They thoroughly looked at how Scientology operates, how the organization is set up and run, and the actual practice. What do they believe in? What do they do? What does auditing entail? And does auditing help people? And they determined, no, it does not. So regardless of whether the Supreme Court ruling changed certain things later down the line, the Charity Commission looked in detail at how Scientology operates and said the organization simply is not set up to help people. It is private in nature. It is something that doesn't help people that come into contact with Scientology. 3 months earlier, on the 8th of August 1996, Scientology lawyer Peter Hodkin filed documents with the Companies House, which incorporated a new entity called Church of Scientology England and Wales, which would become the UK operating arm upon granting of charity status. And one thing to note on here, what they're saying, the Charity Commission, obviously this happened before the Commission issued their ruling, but what Scientology have done here is set up a new organization so that they could say, look, our organization is set up for the purposes under charity law of advancing religion and so on. And if you look at the corporate documents, the governing documents for this organization, they basically copy and pasted the charity law requirements into their governing document and just changed the name and put the word Scientology in there, because their obviously excuse is, look, this is going to be the organization and therefore it's set up in the way that it needs to be. Fortunately, the Charity Commission saw through this and continued to ban Scientology from charity status regardless. This, despite not being successful, this entity still exists to this day and files annual accounts with Companies House, and narrowly avoided being struck from the company register in 2009, 2011, and 2012. Here's what their governing document states. The charity's object is the advancement of the Scientology religion, and in particular, but not so as to limit the generality of the foregoing: 1, the espousal, presentation, propagation, and practice of, and the ensuring and maintaining of the purity and integrity of the religion of Scientology. 2, the advancement of the religious and other charitable work of Scientology churches and missions in England and Wales. 3, the maintenance of the fabric and furnishings of Scientology churches and missions in England and Wales. 4, the production, publication, and dissemination of Scientology religious works. And 5, the advancement of religious education in accordance with the doctrines and practice of Scientology. So this is textbook. They've basically looked at the requirements that they need to meet in order to be a charity and copied and pasted it into their governing document and just entered the word Scientology in there. It's clearly them just trying to game the system. And fortunately, the Charity Commission saw right through this. In 2023, it reported to have no employees and just £20 in assets. Scientology's UK operations continue to be accounted for through an Australian registered non-profit called COSRECI, Church of Scientology Religious Education College Incorporated. And as a result, it is required to pay corporation tax on its profits, although its careful accounting practice of reporting over $100 million in debts owed to other Scientology entities mean the organization has been operating at a huge loss for the last several decades. This is something that I pay a very close attention to. I look at their financial accounts every single year as soon as they're filed with the ACNC, the Australian Charities and Non-Profits Commission, and I spend a lot of time dissecting their accounts and looking at where they're spending their money. And every year, COSRECI borrows millions of dollars from the Church of Scientology International, from FLAG, and from other Scientology organizations over in the US. It also lends money to European Scientology organizations. So it's very clear that it is set up as a money-making scheme and their focus is financial wealth. The whole reason it's set up in that way is to avoid paying tax. Because every single year, if Scientology can claim that they've had to pay back this huge loan and they're in debt to this other organization, their profits can actually be reported as minus, as negative numbers. They are reporting that they are operating at a loss because that means they pay less corporation tax. Regardless of being considered a non-profit in Australia that operates exclusively in the United Kingdom, they do have to pay tax on their profits. So it's in their best interests to report no profits are being made. And that is how they've been operating for several years. I think the 1970s is when COSRECI was set up. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be illegal. It's just highly unethical, in my opinion. Nonetheless, the Church of Scientology seems to have not given up hope of one day achieving charity status in the United Kingdom. In 2013, Peter Hodkin's daughter Louisa and nephew of famous author Neil Gaiman, Ali Caucioli, took a case to the Supreme Court in order to get married at their place of work, the Church of Scientology, London. I was on staff when that happened. I remember it very, very well. And I remember the whole focus was on Sunday service. They needed to prove that they conducted religious ceremonies that are open to the public every week, and staff members, such as myself, were highly encouraged to go to Sunday service, even though Sunday service is not something that is important in the Scientology religion or within the church. Scientologists don't go to Sunday service. It was created for the sole purpose of gaining tax exemption and coming across as a legitimate religious organization. It is not an actual form or part of the Scientology religious belief system. It is just a facade. And this is something that I remember happening. They were really pushing it. And that's what the whole basis of the Supreme Court decision was based upon. And it actually redefined religion. In fact, let me continue with this. The ruling redefined religion in British law and resulted in Scientology chapels being recognized as places of worship, and a subsequent 10-year legal battle with HM Revenue and Customs over the impact this had on their tax liabilities. Now, it's important to note the 2013 Supreme Court ruling was not recognition of Scientology as a religious organization. It was a tax ruling that recognized chapels, which is just one room in a Church of Scientology property, recognized that single room as a place of worship for the purposes of conducting weddings, religious worship ceremonies. It was a tax case, or the next case was a tax case. This was to do with weddings. It wasn't about the organization. It wasn't about Scientology as a religion. It was just looking at this one room and whether that room constituted as a place of worship. The rest of the building is not considered a place of worship. The rest of the building, the auditing rooms, the course rooms, the offices, the ethics office, the canteen, all of the other rooms in the building at London Org were not considered places of worship. It's just the chapel, which is one of the smallest rooms, apart from the interview rooms, in the building. But nonetheless, after the 2013 case, they then continued, and this is where we get into the tax case that I just mentioned, which lasted 10 years. Places of public worship are exempt from paying business rates in the UK, and as we reported last year, a judge had ruled Scientology chapels were not eligible for tax relief. Although the Supreme Court decided they were places of worship, it didn't determine whether that worship was public. But after an appeal to a specialist valuations tribunal, it was concluded in January of last year that although the buildings were largely empty, the church does actively invite non-Scientologists to take part in its services, and as such was granted partial tax exemption. So, Scientology were rejected charity status in 1999. They applied in 96, rejected in 99. In 2013, they applied for the place of worship certificate. And then 10 years later, so 24 years after being rejected, they're still in court fighting for their buildings to be recognized as places of worship. And that is the case that they won in January of last year. So, Scientology chapels, single rooms within the Scientology buildings, are now considered places of public worship, which means they are exempt from paying business rates, which is one single type of tax that businesses have to pay in the United Kingdom to their local authority. They're still not exempt from corporation tax, VAT, and so on and so forth. But for the purposes of tax, certain rooms in their properties are considered places of public worship, so they don't have to pay tax to their local authorities. The prospect for Scientology gaining full charity status, however, remains slim. The Charity Commission's 1999 ruling suggested that even if the circumstances around Scientology's religious status were to change, public benefit should not be presumed. It referenced public and judicial concern and made clear that the practice of Scientology itself does not benefit the public. This is another quote here from the conclusion of the decision of the Charity Commission. The Commission has considered that even if a member of the public could attend an auditing and or training session other than as a participant, but rather as an observer, these Scientology services are by their very nature directed to the particular individual receiving them. Auditing appears akin to a form of counseling and is described by Scientologists who receive it as counseling. It is directed to the private needs of the individual receiving it. The Commission has found it difficult to see how the public could be edified or otherwise benefited by attending and observing at such an session. Both the above factors, that Scientology services are conducted in private and are in their nature private, being directed to the needs of private individuals in receipt of them, seemed to the commissioners to indicate that these actual activities are of a private nature rather than a public kind. In any event, it seemed to the commissioners that any benefit to the public that may flow from auditing and training is incapable of proof, any edification or improving effect being limited to the private individual engaging in the auditing or training. Accordingly, the commissioners concluded that these activities conferred no legally recognized benefit to the public. So this is where you start to have, or I start to have, such massive respect for the Charity Commission. The Charity Commission looked in excruciating detail at the practice of Scientology, their belief system, and they didn't just take Scientology's PR information and statements from their lawyers and all this flappery and nonsense that they throw out there online in their sort of Freedom magazine articles and flashy PR campaigns and Super Bowl ads. The Charity Commissioners spent 3 years very meticulously analysing Scientology's practices and what it means to do auditing, what it means to be trained to be an auditor, to go up the bridge. It looked at all of these things in detail and assessed whether practicing the religion benefits the public. Now, with the example of a Christian church, it could be argued that praying, attending a church service at a Christian church benefits the public because anybody can go and engage in a Sunday service at a Christian church. They can sit there, they can pray, they can have a moment of solitude, they can connect with a higher being, a God in whatever form you believe that to be. You can read the Bible, you can engage in an act of prayer and an act of worship in public. These services are open to anyone and everybody. You can't, or if you are expelled from a Christian church, the Catholic Church or whatever, you would still be welcome to attend a Sunday service. You could still go and speak to your priest or a minister, and you could still engage in an act of worship. And therefore, there is a public benefit because members of the public are able to attend and engage in this service and therefore benefit from a spiritual perspective. Scientology does not do that. The Charity Commission said, irrespective of the Sunday service situation, practicing Scientology only helps individuals, if that. They didn't actually say that it helps anybody. They actually said that the practice of Scientology is private in nature. So if you would go to a church of Scientology and say, hey, I want some auditing, that auditing is private. It only affects the one person that is taking part in that auditing session. There's an auditor and the pre-clear, and that's it. It's not an act of public service that anybody and everybody can go to and benefit from. And that's why this ruling is so important, because it's not just taking their PR flappery, it's actually looking at the practice of Scientology and ruling that it doesn't benefit the public. So in order for Scientology to now get charity status, it has to prove to the Charity Commission that this has changed. And that is not something that they're going to be able to do, because it's policy in Scientology that you can't change what L. Ron Hubbard wrote. What was written is written. It can't be changed, and it has to be applied exactly as LRH wrote it. Anyway, let's carry on. But that doesn't mean they won't try. 25 years later, Scientology continued in their efforts to establish legitimacy at every opportunity, claiming recent protests outside their UK headquarters, which called for an end to abuse in its organisation, amount to religious discrimination and bigotry and should be banned through a public spaces protection order. At last month's gathering of the IAS, St. Hill hosted a private dinner for local dignitaries, despite global criticism of their attempts to stifle protesters and their failure to comply with planning regulations. Scientology Business has seen evidence that Steve Barnett from East Grinstead Town Council, Dick Sweatman from Mid Sussex District Council, Tony Scott from East Grinstead Town Council, and former East Grinstead mayors Christine Mainstone and Danny Favour were all in attendance. £50,000 cheques were also given to East Grinstead Rugby Club and the Sports and Leisure Centre, which neighbours their St Hill property. But for now, Scientology remains a business in the eyes of the UK government, and as such, it must pay tax on its profits. Journalist Tony Ortega from the Underground Bunker, who has been reporting on the church's activities since 1995, tells us Scientology may have reached its greatest size and influence as the 1990s began, but the seeds of its long, gradual decline also began in that decade. The Time magazine cover story in 1991 and subsequent litigation was a major blow, for example. And I think the UK Charity Commission was another. It was a rare instance of a government body standing up to an organisation that had a scary reputation. 25 years later, Scientology is really struggling to keep its doors open. And maybe if a few more governments agencies did their jobs, this harmful racket posing as a religion will be investigated for its very real abuses. Former Scientology spokesperson Mike Rinder, who was heavily involved in the 1996 application for the charity status, says Scientology will never gain charity status in the UK because it will never be able to prove any public benefit, because there is none, only PR videos. But when there is a verification entity, the PR is useless. 25 years down, an eternity to come. So that is today's article. It is the 25th anniversary of Scientology's rejection by the Charity Commission, and I thought it was important to just take a minute and have a look at how that's affected Scientology. They are still trying to gain legitimacy in any way they possibly can, and mayors, former mayors and councillors in East Grinstead are falling for their tricks. Scientology say there was a Supreme Court ruling that said that we were a religion and therefore we should be respected and we should, be considered as a religious organization that exists for the public benefit. But they are missing the fact that in 1999, the Charity Commission ruled that regardless of their status as a religion, whether they're recognized or not, the practice of Scientology doesn't help anybody. That's what the Charity Commission ruled. And I wanted to remind everybody that this ruling still stands to this very day. Now, let's have a little look at some of these comments before we move on to the next story. Where are we? Mrs. Late DHD, hi one and all. Never usually see a live, such a treat. So pleased to see you, Alex. Hello, thank you, and welcome to your first live. Rachel Harris, tried searching Scientology on that site, but no matches. I'm guessing you're talking about the Charity Commission website. Let me find it here. Charity Commission, Church of Scientology, England, Wales. Here we go. I'm posting the link. This is the UK government website. This is a link to their decision about Scientology, 17th of November, 1999. And you can download it as a PDF or you can download it as an HTML file. This is the page, gov.uk, decision, Church of Scientology, England, Wales, 49 pages. So this is the PDF document that I was reading from. This is here. This is it in its entirety, and this is the document that I quoted from. It is very extensive, and it goes into a lot of detail. And I have broken it down before in previous videos and in articles on my blog, but I just wanted to quote the conclusion today. Let's have a little look. Rachel Harris, Alex, where can we see the original report if your blog is down? Was it hacked or something, by the way? No, it wasn't hacked. My hosting package expired and I have to wait till payday until I can renew it. So it will be down for a few days. I get paid later this week, at which point the website, Scientology Business, will be back up and running, unless you guys want to support the channel with a donation through Buy Me a Coffee. If you want to donate to support my activism, you can do so. Buy Me a Coffee is the links down below, and that will go straight towards getting the website back up and running. But in the meantime, it will be down. The article itself is on my Buy Me a Coffee page and it is free to read. I actually sent it. If people donated Buy Me a Coffee, through Buy Me a Coffee, in order to give back and say thank you for your support, I made this article available to my Buy Me a Coffee supporters early before it was published on Scientology Business. And now that Scientology Business has been taken down because of the hosting package, I've made that post on Buy Me a Coffee publicly available for free for everybody, so that the article is still accessible. So that is the link to the article. I've just put it in the chat if you want to go and read it. Or obviously you can scroll back in the video and press pause and read it, or just listen to me reading it. whichever you prefer. Let's carry on. SP Crusader Leany G comment: you have to book to go to a Sunday service in order to be registered to get past security. In the name of Xenu, what church does that? Yeah, so apparently anybody can show up and go to a Sunday service at an org. I think it's different at St. Hill, because St. Hill is an advanced organization. It's the UK headquarters, and so you have to book before you're allowed to go to the premises, whether you want a tour of the manor or whether you want to attend a Sunday service there. Now, the other organizations, for example, London Org, which is what this ruling was all about initially in 2013, anybody apparently can just rock up and go to a Sunday service. Now, what's important is to note is that Mormon churches, there's a chapel and there's a temple, my understanding. A temple is something you have to have a temple recommend to go to. If you're a Mormon, you can't just rock up and go to the temple. You have to be in good standing with the church. So if you're not in good standing, i.e. you've been excommunicated, you've been kicked out of the Mormon church, and you want to go to a service, you can only do so in a Mormon chapel, which is different from the temple. Now, this was well established in UK law, and the chapels, therefore, are recognised as places of public worship and therefore exempt from paying business rates. But the temples are not, because you have to be a Mormon in good standing to go. So therefore, it's not an act of public worship because it's not open to the public. Now, Scientology have a very similar situation. If you are not a Scientologist in good standing, if you have been declared a suppressive person or a potential trouble source, like myself, you would not be allowed to go and attend a Sunday service. You would be escorted off of the property and you would not be allowed to engage in that act of so-called public worship. So the question remains, why did HMRC not see the similarities between the Mormon practice and the Scientology practice? Well, because Scientology pulled the wool over their eyes and tried to claim that even Scientologists who are not in good standing would be allowed to attend a Sunday service in the UK. That, of course, we know is not true, but they managed to convince the judge that it was, and therefore Scientology chapels are considered places of public worship. Whether that decision can be overturned or not is something that I've been working on for a very long time, and I've been in liaison with very high up people at different organizations to try and help them understand that Scientology chapels should be considered just like Mormon temples, and they are not open to the public. You have to be in good standing to go. Anyway, let's carry on. AT Chick: I'm asking my work to transfer me to the Home Office in the UK. Maybe I can protest with you all next year. That would be amazing. If the question is, we are allowed to protest next year. Now, the protest movement in the UK is facing a lot of scrutiny at the moment. Scientology applied for a public spaces protection order, which would ban protesting outside Scientology's UK properties. And that is a process that is ongoing and will likely be ongoing until January. So I'm spending a lot of time defending our rights to protest and freedom of speech. There is a deadline coming up this Friday for protesters to submit evidence who attended the IES protest just the other week. And so there's a lot in the air at the moment. It's possible protesting will be banned. If it is banned, it will then be taken to the High Court. And that is a process that will take many more months. So please don't book any flights, is what I'm saying, to come and protest with us in October next year, just yet. I would hold out and wait. But it's possible that we won't get banned. And of course, that would be fantastic. And if we don't get banned, it would be great to have you with us here in the UK protesting. Kirby's mum: when in January is the ruling in regards to the protest due? Thank you. Great question. So the process is we have, as protesters, until Friday, this Friday coming up, to supply evidence with relation to our protest that just happened. Mid Sussex District Council are reviewing the evidence that they gathered whilst observing the protest and looking at body cam footage captured by the police and the observers they had there, and speaking to protesters and speaking to Scientology. They are gathering and reviewing all of the evidence. The deadline for evidence to be submitted is Friday coming up. They then start looking at all of this evidence for several weeks. It's going to take a lot of time for them to review all of the video footage, the timestamps, all of the written evidence and documentation that is going to be supplied. That's going to take some time. Mid Sussex District Council will then decide on reviewing that evidence whether or not to proceed with the PSPO. They may decide, after looking at the evidence, that there is no evidence to suggest our protest was disruptive to the local community, and therefore there is no requirement to proceed with a PSPO. At that point, the PSPO gets shut down, we are not banned, and we can carry on as we were. However, they may decide that there is enough evidence, that there is sufficient. They may decide there is sufficient evidence to proceed with a further, wider public consultation. If they make that decision, then that will take several weeks over the Christmas period. I believe that would be end of November, beginning of December through to January. And that public consultation is where they ask the wider members of the public what their thoughts are on whether protesting should be banned outside St. Hill. Then at the end of January, they review the results of the public consultation and the evidence that was gathered. And at that point, they then decide, the cabinet get together and decide whether to ban protesting. And that won't happen until the end of January. So there's a lot of ifs and maybes and possibilities here. All I can say for now is if you were there protesting in person, please make sure you submit your evidence before Thursday to make sure you've got time in case anything goes wrong or you forget something and want to add something to your submission. Try and submit it before Thursday this week. After Friday, the deadline will have passed and you won't be able to submit any further evidence. It will then take several weeks for them to review it, and I'll keep you guys updated as soon as I have any more updates for you. Let's have a little look. Boo, how much is the hosting package? I believe it's £10, £8.90, 10. It's like about $10, something like that. It's not expensive, but it'll have to wait until payday on Thursday. Educom, you need your magic underwear to go to a Mormon temple. Yes, that is true. And that is why Mormon temples are not considered places of public worship. Boo asks, are you protesting LRH birthday again? To be confirmed. I am focusing primarily at the moment on defending our right to protest at St. Hill. It's too early to start thinking about LRH's birthday in March. I will let you guys know as and when I can. Another UK cult is asking Walthamstow Council to not implement a PSPO as it would prevent them harassing a BBC journalist. Cults and UK public order legislation. Yes, there's a lot of focus on this at the moment. There's also a lot of articles going out over the web about the Christian Church, the Catholic Church, and the Protestant Church, and the Church of England, and abuse going on inside those organisations. So there's a lot of focus on this, absolutely, at the moment. Rachel Harris says, yeah, he said somewhere else. It might not be London, though. Maybe Denmark with Scientology up north. Fantastic. I would love to go to Denmark and join the guys up there. Miriam and Elron Hubcult are doing fantastic work in Denmark. Andy Two Arms says, wherever it is, count me in. Awesome. Thank you, Andy. Okay, let's move on to the next piece of news, which is to do with Ireland. I was actually in Ireland yesterday and the day before. I was there over the weekend. And while I was there, this piece came out in the Irish Times. And it's really, really interesting. Reports of Church of Scientology recruiting asylum seekers deeply concerning, O'Gorman says. Jordanian Palestinian man approached by church who told him he would be given a certificate that would help with his refugee status. It is deeply concerning that asylum seekers have reported experiences of being recruited to leaflet and volunteer for the Church of Scientology, Green Party leader and Minister for Integration Roderick O'Gorman has said. The Irish Times reported on Saturday how Anas Ishtia, a Jordanian Palestinian who was staying at the Crooksling Tented International Protection Accommodation Centre, was approached by a man who suggested he volunteer with the Church of Scientology. He said I'd get a certificate that would help me with my refugee status and give me an advantage to remain in Ireland, and that they would help me with my job interviews, Mr. Ishtia said, or Ishtia. Speaking in Dublin on Saturday, Mr. O'Gorman said international protection applications are examined on the basis of the evidence whether someone faced prosecution in their home country, and anyone alleging otherwise is lying. I would have a real concern then an organization is using a prospect of something that is very attractive to international protection applicants and maybe preying on their vulnerability as well, he said. That is deeply concerning. Mr. O'Gorman said he would speak to officials in his department because there is no way that sort of exploitation of vulnerable people in order to build the strength of an organization is acceptable. Mr. Ishtaya described how he agreed to set up the Crooksling Scientology WhatsApp group to help recruit other Arabic-speaking asylum seekers in the camp. Up to 200 asylum seekers subsequently joined the group. Half the people in Crooksling don't speak English, so I had a chance to be translator for them. I told them the same thing I'd been told, that this would help with their refugee status. He rounded up between 20 and 50 men twice a week who were taken by bus into Dublin city centre to hand out anti-drug leaflets to passers-by. At the end of each day, the men received certificates of participation, a document they believed which could help with their asylum claim. A spokeswoman for the Church of Scientology said many hundreds of asylum seekers have volunteered to date. She said they are enthusiastic participants who eagerly requested letters or certificates of acknowledgement to acknowledge their participation, which we provided. The Church has never and would never advise any asylum seeker on any legal aspects of their application or circumstances, she said. Separately, Mr. O'Gorman defended a party colleague after it emerged he had ejected to more than 300 houses near at home. And the rest of the article just talks about something else that's going on in Irish politics, not related to Scientology. But essentially, what we have here is Scientology taking advantage of vulnerable asylum seekers who have left their country of origin to try and seek support and help in Ireland. They are homeless refugees. They are people that are needing help, and they are applying for a definite leave to remain in Ireland. And the Church of Scientology are coming along here and saying, we'll give you a certificate to say that you helped the community. Now, my understanding of this and the way that this works is that in order to be processed as asylum seekers, they need to prove that they are upstanding citizens, that they are doing what they can to help support people, they're working, if they're allowed to, they are giving back to the community, and they're generally good people. So Scientology is saying, well, look, we're a church and we're giving you these anti-drug leaflets. So if you go and hand these out every single day, we'll give you a piece of paper that says, I've been handing out anti-drug leaflets and therefore I'm a good person. And that will help you with your asylum application. This is disgusting, and I'm so glad that the Irish Times are reporting on it and that the Irish government are looking at this. Now, if you look at the numbers, the last census in Ireland said that there are 132 Scientologists, up from 80-something a few years earlier. So there's not a great deal of number of Scientologists in Ireland, but they now have an opportunity to recruit 200 asylum seekers. Scientology are trying to exploit these vulnerable people, and it is absolutely disgusting. So massive respect to the Irish Times for reporting on this, and massive respect to the Irish government for keeping a close eye on Scientology's activities in Ireland. Let's have a little look at these comments. Witnesses saying they are preying on vulnerable people in need. It's disgusting, in my opinion. Yes, absolutely. LuPT, for some reason, the link is broken on my end. No worries. I'll get on my laptop after this update. Yes, go back to the beginning of the stream if you missed it. Scientologybusiness.com is currently down. It will be back up at some point soon. But for now, the article that I read regarding charity status is on Buy Me a Coffee, which is free to access. I'll post the link in the description after this video is finished. Boo says, how is it exploiting or recruiting them, though? How is it exploiting or recruiting them, though? Aren't they just handing out leaflets for drug prevention? Yes, it's exploiting them because the only reason these people are giving out these leaflets is because they think it's going to help their asylum application. Scientology have said, hey, if you do this work for us, handing out these leaflets, we will give you a certificate that will help you in claiming asylum. So get all of your friends and all the people that you know and you are living with at this asylum refugee center, and get them to help us hand out these leaflets disseminating Scientology. And let's not forget, a lot of this information in these drug booklets is false and misleading because it's written by the Church of Scientology based on the works of L. Ron Hubbard, not on medical information by professionals who know about drug information and the science behind drugs and the effects they have on the human body. They are disseminating Scientology technology because they think that it's going to give them some sort of legal standing to apply for a definite leave to remain in Ireland. They're not doing it because they actually want to do it, or necessarily, or because they want to be a part of the Church of Scientology. They're doing it because they are told it will help them, and that is a lie. It will not help them. Scientology do not have the ability to grant asylum in Ireland. That is something that the government looks at, and what the government minister here is saying is that it is disgusting because this is taking advantage of vulnerable people. If Scientology just went up to someone and said, hey, do you want to give out some drug leaflets? If you've got some spare time, volunteer. Fantastic. That would be great. But that's not what they're doing. They're saying you should do this because we can help you in your application for a visa to stay in in Ireland. And that is not the truth. Scientology don't have that ability. And handing out these leaflets does nothing but benefit Scientology and its promotional tools in getting the tech out there to more people. Boo says dodgy. Dodgy, it absolutely is. Witness says they are feeding these vulnerable people false information about legal processes. It should engage every UK citizen. Yes, well, this is happening in Ireland, so absolutely, it should enrage every Irish citizen. And by default, the UK as well. The UK and Ireland have very tight relationship, and this is something that I'm sure they are also doing here in the UK. Let's not forget, when I was director of public book sales at the Church of Scientology in London, we used to go book selling in areas where there were a high number of Arabic native speakers, a lot of people who didn't speak English as their first language, a lot of people who have just moved here from the Arabic speaking countries. We would sell Dianetics in Arabic for the simple reason that a lot of them didn't know what Scientology was, because there isn't really a Scientology premises or presence in the Middle East, simply because it's a very Arabic country, or a number of countries. And so Scientology don't have a big presence there. So what they're trying to do is exploit these people and say, hey, look, Dianetics can help you. We would sell Dianetics in Arabic because we knew we would get less hassle and less pushback, and we wouldn't be shouted at for being a cult or believing in Xenu, because Scientology simply isn't covered in Arabic speaking media to the extent that it is in English. So we were taking advantage of this. And that is something that we were doing. So if Scientology are now going one step further and saying that by joining Scientology will help you get a visa to stay in the UK, that just makes it even more disgusting. It's what they're doing in Ireland. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're also doing it here. Rachel Harris, what's the latest news with trimming Miss Scavage's bush? What a fantastic question. And I'm glad you asked, because I've been paying close attention to Captain Davy's bush, which definitely needs trimming. For those of you who have no idea what on earth I'm talking about, Church of Scientology, St. Hill, the UK headquarters, they planted a huge hedgerow opposite the entrance and installed a fence on the public verge opposite the entrance. The reason they did this is to block protesters, to limit the space they have available to stand. And they also use this hedge to affix a huge sign that says, "Welcome to St. Hill," during the IES event every year. I reported this to the authorities and said, hey, look, they don't have planning permission for this. They've planted a hedgerow on the public land that isn't owned by them. It is an obstruction of the public right of way. It's actually considered highways land. And when the highways are involved, it's kind of irrelevant whose land it is. Even if your property, you own the land right up to the highway, if there's a road that goes through or next to your property, highways actually have kind of ownership over the first couple of meters of that land because of safety for vehicles and public rights of way and this sort of thing. Even if you own the land, you can't just plant a hedgerow on the verge next to a road because it could be considered dangerous and it's an obstruction and so on and so forth. So Scientology were ordered to remove the hedge and remove the fencing behind it. And the council made it very clear that if they didn't do that, they would just remove it and send them the bill. Now, Scientology responded by saying, we definitely planted it there, we put the fence there, but we had permission to do it. We were given a license to do this. And Mid Sussex District Council, or the Highways Authority, sorry, have said, well, we don't have any record of that, and you need to prove that you had permission, otherwise it's gone. So that's where we're currently at. It is currently going back and forth with legal and so on and so forth. And it's on, the onus is on Scientology to prove they have permission to put this hedgerow there. As far as the Highways Authority are concerned, they are still of the view that it needs to be removed. And I have seen evidence that they're not backing down. They're not taking Scientology's nonsense and they're not taking them for their word. They are saying provide proof or it needs to go because it is a danger. They installed this, what's the word, like curbing along the edge of the road, and some of it has become dislodged. And the council, the Highways Authority, looked at this as dangerous because it could, if it's knocked in the wrong way, could eject out into the road, which would then become an obstruction to cars that are passing by, and it could cause a very serious and dangerous accident. So the Highways Authority is saying you need to get rid of it. There's a lot of back and forth going on, and I will, of course, let you know what goes on as I have more updates for you. Rachel Harris. Also, what happened to the councillor who resigned a while back in disgust about the way the council treated you? Wouldn't it be a blow if he came on your channel? Yes, it would be fantastic if he was to come on my channel. He is still a councillor at Mid Sussex District Council. I don't think he's going to come and do an interview with me. The fact that he didn't issue a statement when he resigned, I think was quite telling. I don't think this particular councillor wants to get involved in all the back and forth between Scientology and local council. It is a contentious issue, but just the fact that he resigned was a big, significant indicator that the way East Grinstead Town Council were treating me was not acceptable. And that is something, again, I'm pushing for. I'm still waiting for an apology from East Grinstead Town Council for calling me a vexatious bully when the Information Commissioner determined that I was not a vexatious bully. And the council took back their words, but they didn't apologize. So I'm still waiting for that to happen. But guys, that's it from me for now. Thank you so much for joining. If you want to support the channel, please consider buying me a coffee with the link down in the description. I am now on Blue Sky. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Threads. Go and follow me on other social media platforms. I'm keeping everyone updated as and when I possibly can with information about my activism and what I'm doing here in the UK. And I'll continue to keep my eyes on the prize, stay focused, and work full time to try and defend our right to protest and freedom of speech. Boo, thank you so much for your super chat. Buy that package and do more protests. That's very kind of you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Super chat money, not Scientology. YouTube take 30% of super chat money, and it takes a good couple of weeks for that money to hit a creator's account. But when it does hit the account, I will certainly put it towards the Scientology business. But if anyone wants to donate, otherwise, use the Buy Me a Coffee link because that goes into my account pretty much straight away. And I can use that to get Scientology business back up and running. But the number one best way to support my activism and the work that I'm doing here in the UK is to comment, like, share, subscribe, all that sort of stuff, because money is great and it's helpful. It can help keep the website up and running and so on and so forth. But the number one thing that I'm focusing on is trying to raise public awareness. And the more interaction and engagement that there is, the more people that will see this message, the more people become aware of it. And therefore, the more likely it is we will be able to defend our rights to protest here in the UK. So please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, all that sort of stuff. Juliana Bittencourt, member for 17 months. Thank you so much. Pip, pip, cheerio. Exactly. And that is my message for me for now. From me for now is pip, pip, cheerio, which is just a bit of fun. That's me over and out. Thank you so much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evenings. And as always, I'm not fucking about.